welcome to the VICHARA podcast. My name is Hansa Devi, and I am your host. During these VICHARA podcast sessions, we really hope to inspire your inner journey, and we really hope to infuse your deep dives with conversations about the sacred, the raw, and the real. We want to highlight individuals who are integrating the teachings, no matter what spiritual tradition they have stumbled upon, and no matter what background we have. We can look at people who are walking a conscious life and living a conscious life and see what tools they have adopted, what tools that have helped them. And hopefully we get a little injection of inspiration when we're listening to these conversations. And we want to bring forth people that have really had the courage to step into their own fire, that continue to grow, learn, and evolve. How have these people that we talk to, how have they integrated spiritual tools, and how do they look at life in a way that's really healthy and sound? And what can we learn from these people, and what can we really take with us and absorb and integrate into our own lives? The whole initiative here is to infuse you with inspiration to stay on your path. So may these sessions serve you. During this interview with Shane Carrick, we go into topics like meditation, yin yoga, Zen Buddhism, skating, and bridging the worlds between skating and yoga, and holding a component of service in our hearts. We talk about the Boddhisattva principle that's elaborated on in the Buddhist tradition especially, and we go a little bit deeper into how Shane has started to implement these Bodhisattva and service principles in his life, combining passions and really bridging the gap between different worlds when it comes to skating and yoga. He's a very humble guy. He is very giving. He has a very big heart. Very little ego involved in his offerings, and I just really wanted to highlight who this crazy man is. He is kind of nuts, but he's very awesome, and so I just wanted to put him on the show early to give you guys a glimpse of how one can use one's passion and one's talent, one's skillful means, and make it a dharmic path for oneself, sharing that with others. Shane is a living example of how to live these yogic principles. And they're not even yogic, they're universal for any spiritual path, really. And we get to hear about the spiritual path that he has embarked on. He travels the world and then yet comes back to this tiny little mountain town called Ridgeway, and we're blessed to have him in our community. So here is a glimpse of Shane Carrick, and I hope you enjoy it. Yay, Shane Carrick.
Yay.
Yay, I'm so excited to have you on. For those who don't know you, pro skater, pro snowboarder, pro ski joring competitor, pro yin yoga teacher, pro everything, awesome rad human being, dear friend, dear brother. Yeah, I'm just excited to have a moment with you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Hansa.
Absolutely. So give us a glimpse into Shane Carrick's world for a second. What's up with you?
Shane Carrick's world. Oh, man. Well, Shane Carrick's world has not been that exciting lately. Because of the ski joring, I've been injured. I broke my collarbone. And so I've just been, past few months, I broke my collarbone. And some ribs and things, and a concussion in there, right as the pandemic was sort of starting. So I've been like real injured through the pandemic.
That's right.
So I've been like not only locked in the house, but then I'm also like I was unable to even do like yin yoga. Mm-hmm. I couldn't even sit on my meditation cushion for more than just a few minutes. Like laying on my back was almost impossible. So it's been interesting.
You're kind of trapped in that body, hey, and got to sit with the injury and all of the messages that come with that, huh?
Yeah, well, I'm an active person
I
and
know. It must be hard.
yeah, it is, but it's been good, and it's been good to sort of focus on after a while I could sit for a while,
Mhm.
and so I've been able to kind of spend some time like doing like longer periods of meditation, which have been cool. And since all the new offerings online are happening too, I've had the chance to like last weekend I did a dharma weekend meditation retreat with the Crestone Zen Center, and Zenki, led by Zenki Roshi. So that was really cool, and I would have never actually. I went out there in over the winter, but that was like something I was able to do that I wouldn't have been able to do if it
Mhm.
weren't for the pandemic and COVID.
Mhm.
So like there's been some upsides like that for my meditation practice. It's been good.
Mhm.
Hmm.
And it seems like you've been out walking more too, doing like walking meditations and stuff.
Yeah, definitely. That's been interesting because yeah, just walking around the block was like pretty much it would take it out of me. And
Wow,
then
that much pain?
at the very beginning, yeah, the first like week or so was pretty rough. And it just felt I could just feel my body healing, like just sleep a lot and no energy. Um, but then like little by little, walk a little bit further and a little bit further, and now I'm actually sort of getting into rediscovering all the hiking trails in Uray. I'm like checking them off the list, and
Sweet.
yeah, which is, I mean, I'm from there, obviously, but uh, it's been a while since I've been on some of those trails. So like, that's been really cool.
Does it bring up old memories? Is it nostalgic? Or is it like you see it afresh and anew?
Kind of fresh and new. Like it's
Cool.
kind of from a new perspective. Um, but like just the other day, I was hiking up Chief Uray, and like I like passed my dad coming down. You know what I mean? So it's like
Sweet.
it's also familiar as well. So
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Cool. So for those people that don't know what ski joring is, can you just explain that? Because it's kind of nuts, and I just want people to know how nuts you are.
Well, ski touring, I think, comes from like your neck of the woods, doesn't it? Isn't it a Norwegian or Swedish? It comes from Sweden or Norway.
I
Um,
have no idea. Yeah, I don't know.
because joring, I don't know what joring means, but it's not an English word, I think. Um, but anyway, it's skiers and snowboarders getting towed behind a horse through a sort of like it looks like a motocross course, like rollers and jumps and banks and berms, and yeah, it's a race. So
And it's a small course. It's really tight turns and it goes
right,
really fast and it's absolutely nuts, honestly.
yeah, so it's real quick. Like most of the courses are like under a minute easily.
Uh-huh.
um and yeah, you have a partner, there's like a cowboy or cowgirl and on their horse, and then the skier or snowboarder getting drugged behind, and the fastest one through the course wins. And it's interesting. It's like a super unique sport because it's like the ranch culture
Hmm.
meets the ski culture in one fun event. So
And then people
yeah,
bet on this and you can win money and it's like a big thing. Like it's a huge ordeal.
yeah, yeah, there was like um yeah, like I think they had like $30,000 in prize money or something for the Ridgeway event.
Wow.
And it's like a whole tour. There's like a tour through Colorado, Wyoming, Utah, Montana, and people do like the whole winter circuit. And
Wow. And you were on that circuit in a way, because you went out of state to compete, because you got hooked in Ridgeway.
I got hooked, and then I went to the ski joring national championship
Oh,
in Red Lodge, Montana, and that's where I fell.
but you had a really good race prior, so you got to give yourself a little credit.
I had a good race prior, and then it was actually me showboating that caused me to fall. So I
Ah,
kind of got I learned a lesson.
okay. Have you been sitting with that too afterwards then, it sounds like?
Oh, for sure.
The
For sure.
universe gets you what you need.
Yeah, you act like an asshole and you will pay for it.
Oh God. I have a hard time seeing that though. You're like one of the kindest people I know.
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, ski joring. It's definitely people can give it a Google.
Yeah, that's a good way to see it actually. You got to get a visual for it. It's just kind of
Yeah.
crazy and kind of nuts. But it kind of also describes who you are, because you put yourself out there and you explore your physical, capabilities, and you always want to push yourself not past your edge, but see where that edge is, and you keep challenging yourself, which I think is really cool. And then sometimes you get these humbling experiences as as the reason for it. But I also wanted to talk a little bit about both your skating world and your yoga world, and kind of bring it all together in a sense, because I was starting to think about how I met you, even how we met. Was it through Nancy back in the day? Was it through yoga somehow?
I think I think it was first when Evie and I were in India doing a teacher training, our first yoga teacher training, and
Mm-hmm.
then um, it was like Ashtanga heavy, that program. Obviously, it wasn't an Ashtanga program um, because
But
it wasn't in
close.
Mysore or whatever. But
Yeah, you got to taste it.
well, yeah, we did a lot of sun salutations. No, but it but after that we came back to Ridgeway for like a little while, and we looked up Ashtanga, and we found you, and then we came to I think it was your Mysore room, and I'm
Mm.
pretty sure that's where we met the first time. But yeah, I think you're right. Nancy, my mother-in-law, was going there.
Yeah, yeah. I couldn't necessarily pinpoint that one moment when it was, but I thought it must have been through yoga somehow.
Yeah.
So anyway, so we have that parallel, and we teach through the same shala, and you are focused on yin yoga a lot these days. And do you want to go into a little bit how you fell into that, and why you're so drawn to it, and why it's so beneficial, or just your passion and inspiration from that? And also I want to know how you cross paths with Bernie.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think the reason I always kind of liked like the yin side of a yoga practice, like if you just go to like a vinyasa class, in the beginning, it's gonna be like quick, and movements are rapid, and you're not spending much time in the poses. But like usually a teacher will taper off the energy, and at the end of the class, like there'll be longer holds and start to relax a little bit. And I think like I always felt like I really wanted to I liked the end of the yoga class
Mm-hmm.
where the poses were like relaxed and held for a longer period of time. And I always just thought I was lazy, and it was like because I was tired, that it felt good that I didn't have to like be in chair pose for a minute or whatever. Like it feels good to lay on the floor afterwards. um so I never really, because I started doing yoga that was definitely not yin yoga.
Mm.
Like the first yoga class I ever did was Evie, my wife, convinced me to go because I was having some back issues, and I was like feeling like, oh, I'm gonna find the hardest yoga class because I'm like a dude and I work out, and yoga's for girls. And so I went to a heated, weighted
Oh gosh.
vinyasa class in Telluride,
Oh.
and and like you get the weights like before class, and you have your options of the, like 2 pounds, 4 pounds, or whatever it is. And
Mhm.
I saw there was like 10 pounds. So I was like, I'm getting the 10-pound weights. I like 2 minutes in the class, I was dying, and I made like this walk of shame up to the front of the studio, and I replaced my 10-pound weights with like little pink 1 pound weights. And I like skulked back to my mat with my tail between my legs.
Uh-huh.
Um, and then, so I don't know how I ever made it. I don't know why I ever went to a yoga class again after that, but I did. And I found like a less intense class
Mhm.
um, at the Telluride Yoga Center. That was probably more like what you would probably like describe now as like hatha yoga.
Mhm.
And I really like that. And like I said, like I really like the end of that type of class. And that sort of led us to sort of like reevaluate reevaluate our entire lives, basically, like and we did our teacher training in India, so kind of back to that. And
Mhm.
that was real Ashtanga heavy. So that's like the practice that I felt like I was taught in India, and then obviously pursued like back in Ridgeway with you,
Mhm.
and really loved it, and really benefited from that practice in like so many ways. But I was still always like the lazy Ashtangi, like I feel like
Do I know?
uh
Just
yeah.
kidding.
So I went to a yin yoga class for the first time when Evie and I, after our India trip, we did like a big around the world journey, and we spent 3 months in Bali, like focusing on yoga and stuff. And that was where I did my first yin class. And I just remember thinking like, oh, this is a whole yoga class that does the end of a normal yoga class for the whole time.
Yeah,
Like
score.
like this is great. And you know, I've always been kind of like I've always exercised, worked out. I've always like done sports, and like I'm definitely like the type of like a active person. And um this was a totally different thing. Like I felt really good physically. I felt really relaxed. I had like the time and space in the poses like really resonated for me. And it was really like, I kind of think like I had found like what I needed to balance out my personality and life. And I think my, like, if you're using like yin and yang terms, like my yoga was very yang to match my like yang lifestyle and personality.
Hmm.
And once I found like a yin physical practice, to me it was just totally clear that like, oh, like I'm really responding to this. Like I feel better, my body feels better. Like this is a good thing for balance.
Hmm. And do you feel like the yoga has strengthened the other activities, or either like your level of attention or concentration? Has there been any side effects that you can see?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, like physical side effects were like I said, we spent 3 months in Bali, and after that first yin yoga class, I just was only going to like yin yoga after that.
Cool.
And yeah, and I'd been doing yoga probably for a couple of years by that point, um, regularly at home in Colorado.
Hmm.
And, like I'm like a guy and not super flexible. And I've never really have been.
Hmm.
And when like that 3 months in Bali doing yin yoga, like my body opened up physically
Mm.
more than it had in the past couple of years of like a yang yoga practice. And so to me, it was like, whoa, like I'm finding all of this new flexibility. My body's becoming physically unstuck in all of these areas. And it was like totally, it worked on my body. Whereas like more yang types of yoga, just I didn't feel like I was gaining any flexibility. So that was like the main really like super apparent, like immediate benefit, I think, was like real quick physical flexibility. So I don't know if that's a good or bad thing or whatever. I mean, we can argue.
Yeah, well,
Like
I mean, no judgment really, but it's just interesting to hear what your experience is or has been.
Yeah, totally. And then, well, the other thing too was like mentally, like I was always just like, am I trying to keep up with like, I'm in a yoga pose for 5 breaths and is my arm in the right position and this and that, and looking at my neighbor and trying to listen to the yoga teacher. And then it's like, on to the next pose, on to the next pose, on to the next pose. Like, and yin yoga was like, oh, we're in a pose for 5 minutes and the teacher's not saying anything. Like, to me, it was like a real good introduction to like meditation 101. And then that's been an obvious like path out of yin yoga for me.
Cool. Now go there. I want to hear more. I want the world to hear more.
Yeah, but you know, when I was thinking about it, it's like if you look at sort of people, you can argue this, like obviously I'm no expert, but people do say that like asana is like preparation for your body to be able to sit in a seated meditation posture for a long time without your body screaming at you. And to me, it was like, I don't think I could have sat in a seated meditation posture on a cushion for more than a few minutes without, my back aching or something, like, or my hips being tight or whatever, before yin yoga. So to me, it's like it when you look at like, the 8 limbs and you look at the purpose, to me it made sense. It was like, oh, okay, yeah, like, why do we do asana? Okay, like this is the purpose I want to get out of it. Like, okay, that's happening. All right, great. What's the next step?
Yeah.
And to me, it was like an obvious progression. So that progression was, yeah, it seems like, yeah, it's meditation down the line a little bit.
And you've also, you tasted that flavor of the stillness in the yin practice, in a sense. On the mental plane, you've already befriended that space that can, create uncertainty for the mind, and it wants to stay busy with a pose or whatever. And you already gone to that place a little bit, so it might have been a little bit calmer also.
Yeah, totally. Like, I mean, I'm definitely not, I wouldn't have just gone into like a drop-in meditation class before that. Like I would have rather like hit my hand with a hammer, like. Like,
here's Shane for you. Just kidding.
but yeah, like getting a taste of that, I got a taste of that in yin yoga, whereas I had not tasted that anywhere else, except for shavasana, I guess, in other yoga classes.
First of all, I want to reflect back on our time together in the Mysore room. I never saw you as lazy, just for the record.
Thanks, Hansa.
And I never saw you either. A lot of guys can get competitive, and it's almost like an ego boost. And I never saw that. You were somewhere in the middle. You were that equanimous guy. You took that golden middle path. I think I've always seen that in you. I feel like that's always been there percolating, that happy middle ground. And maybe that's, self-discipline and also just what I see on the outer, but I always sense that in you. And I really want to say that I'm proud of you that you took a step away from Ashtanga to explore yin yoga fully. And I think that's really healthy, not to do all different types of yogas. This is just my personal opinion, but I believe in the analogy where you're drilling water, and if you are trying to drill too many holes, you're never going to go deep enough. And you have really immersed yourself in yin yoga and now also in meditation. And I would love to hear a little bit more about that and your journey in that. And just tell us where you're at with that and how it's been.
Yeah, I mean, well, I'm glad you don't think I was lazy, because I definitely was. No, but yeah, like it's been, we've been living in Paris for basically the past year. And when we first got there, I was drawn to the Paris Zen dojo, and which is one of the first Zen centers to be established outside of Japan.
Wow.
So it's got like this really old, yeah, it's a real cool old monastery in the city. And I started going there, which was real interesting. And sort of began that really clicked with me. The Zen practice fit really well with kind of where I was at with my yin yoga practice, like the space and simplicity and sort of rationality of it kind of like really resonated with me, I think. Mm-hmm. I think sometimes with yoga, some of the stuff is like a little bit too like a little too woo woo, or not woo woo, but like a little too like magical, a little too complicated, a little bit too unclear, a little too ambiguous, you know. Mm-hmm. And with the Zen tradition, it's like no bullshit. Like it's like their tradition is to be very, very simple. So that really was like, that made sense with me. So I sort of began like a regular practice sitting zazen with the monks there at the Zen Center. They have like an open drop-in program, and I'd join them like once or twice a week for basically like the year that we were there. And that had like a huge impact, I think, on me, just in like sort of meditation instruction, and just viewing what meditation is and how to do it, and you know, what's the purpose of it, through the lens of Zen made sense to me. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I think it's like what do they say, like all like many roads, you know, what's the saying, I forget, like
many roads that lead to the same place.
Yeah, exactly. Like I think like each person resonates with like a practice in their own way based on their own personality and who they are. Mm-hmm. I don't think there's like one right or wrong way.
Agree.
And I think like yin yoga and then like the Zen tradition has like made sense to me personally. Mm-hmm. But it's not like I see that is like the only way. Like
no, but you've taken the time to dive and try different things to find what works for you. And I guess that's what's inspiring too, that you keep exploring and now you're going deep into these. Yeah, it's just opening up something also, because it's not necessarily the most popular yoga. And so it's like, if you're looking at commercial like yoga industry as such in the West, it's not usually where the focus is at on the Zen Buddhist path, for example. And so I was familiar with that before I started practicing Ashtanga yoga or any physical yoga, actually, because I had an old roommate who would go to the Zen Center outside of Stockholm, and he would go and sit for 10 hours a day. And I was like, what's that? And so he kind of got me into the Zen Center in Stockholm. So for you to find that path, and it's really close to my heart, I'm like, oh, I just want you to like do it, immerse yourself, because it's such a beautiful, the simplicity that you're talking about, there's such richness in that. And I
Yeah,
feel like that's
definitely.
what's lost a lot in the commercial yoga, if I can be harsh, in the West.
And they hit you with a stick.
Yes, and see, I have you don't even know this because you're dropped out of Ashtanga, but I have one in my Ashtanga group too. I have a stick.
Good, hit them,
It's a good
Hansa, hit
threat.
them,
Yeah,
hit
it's a
them.
good threat. Just kidding. We sound like we're awful, but I do have a stick.
No, yeah, you say it's not popular, and it's like it is funny because there's so much attention to the ritual and form.
Mm-hmm.
You, for instance, like when you go sit zazen, I mean, I'm telling you, like you have to you have to enter in a you have to make sure that your mood is calm, that you're not flustered before you even enter. And that's just the first section. You have to grip your hands in a certain way. You have to enter with your left foot. So you have to go clockwise. You can't cross the Buddha.
Mm-hmm.
You have to, I mean, there's like a whole thing. And like, to me at first, I was just like, and everyone's in robes.
Mm-hmm.
And to me at first, I was like, it makes me cringe, I'm like definitely not the type of person that like I wouldn't do well in the military. I'm not very good with like a hierarchical structure or like regimented discipline.
Mm-hmm.
So at first I saw that as like a turn off. And then you just sit down and you stare at the wall. And it's like your eyes are open, you're just sitting at the wall, no one tells you what to do. And then someone comes by and hits you with a stick. And then you chant and leave. Like, it's just so you can see why it would not be popular at first.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
um but again, like the actual form, like once I started to see that the purpose of that is to be present and to pay attention and to do that not just when you're sitting on your yoga or on your meditation cushion,
Mm-hmm.
but to have that kind of attention to like where you put your shoes and the energy you give off as you come into a room, and like your everyday life, like. And then, I mean, to me that was where the real sort of like benefits started to show up for my meditation practice. Was like on the cushion, I'm just sitting there staring at the wall. Nothing magical or crazy ever happens. But then in my life, like, oh, I'm like a little bit less reactive. I'm
Mm-hmm.
like a little bit happier. I'm a little bit more easygoing. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not as likely to be like sucked into a pattern of anxiety that I would have before, or you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like real
Totally.
tangible sort of living a better life type of thing, like off of the mat. And that's what hooked me.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing that hooked me with Zen is like, and again, this is like, I think where I kind of like depart from like yoga philosophy a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
is like, I really like what they say in Zen about, well, just the idea of like the Boddhisattva, which is like the being that's postponing any type of enlightenment in order to help beings that are remaining on earth and in the cycle of samsara,
Mm-hmm.
and they, I mean, that even that's a little like woo woo, like what does that even mean? But like I think in the Zen Buddhist tradition and in Buddhism in general, like there's like a pretty strong emphasis on um, on helping other people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like a big part of like my life and direction. And to see that sort of come up in a spiritual tradition that I'm practicing, like I really liked, that was really like a light bulb for me. To have emphasis on meditation, but have emphasis on service of the community too. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's so refreshing to see. And I'm not sure if in yoga philosophy in general, it's more about like withdrawing from the world and withdrawing from our senses. And I always had like a hard time sort of connecting with that a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Like to me, I want to be like out in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Like I want to be helping people. I want to be out in it. I want to be like alive and living. And to me, like that's not something that I've really found that really like backed up that ideal in yoga for me. But
Mm-hmm.
in Buddhism, it was like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, like this seems more of like what my life sees as important, or like what choices I've made in my life that seem important. So yeah, that's why I found it kind of interesting.
I'm really glad that you bring that up, because the whole idea of the Bodhisattva, we can apply that to your whole skating project, and we'll get there in a minute. But I also want to refer back to the yoga practice. The only thing I can, as you were saying that about the Bodhisattva and that path of service, the only thing I can kind of pull out as a nugget from the yoga philosophy would then be service or seva or karma yoga, even bhakti
Right.
yoga in a sense, because there's that devotion.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, and I'm not saying like that yoga philosophy like doesn't support service. Like it's obviously like written in there as well, but like
it just hit you at the right time, and you could really resonate with it, it sounds like.
Well, and just to see like the communities that are like committed to service projects. It's not like you go to like most yoga studios and you see that like everyone is working toward or committed towards like a local like organization that's doing, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like
it's harder.
You do find it, but like
through ashrams you do, but not necessarily studios.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but to me it was super apparent like that engagement was happening in the Zen Buddhist community.
Mm-hmm.
And I just hadn't really seen that in yoga before, and it turned me on for sure.
Cool. Well, I'm really excited that you're on that path, because it's cool to see your evolution in it, because we're close friends, and it's fun to see how you're, not just dipping your toes anymore. It's deepening your whole inner world.
But I didn't get a robe.
Well, it's just it's a matter of time.
Well, I was supposed to get like the lay practitioner robe, but I just couldn't do it.
Oh, geez. Do we have to sew you one?
Well, yeah. And there was a weekend where like a very high level Zen Buddhist priest came, and I showed up for the practice, and I just did it in my jeans. Mm-hmm. And I was definitely the only person in like a t-shirt and jeans. So.
But it's not about your appearance though. I see how like when you want to honor tradition, I definitely see it, but we all know it's beyond that.
Yeah. And the instruction was given in French too. So it was a little,
wow.
I was definitely feeling like an outsider, to say the least.
Wow. Well, you were also teaching as you were in Paris. Were you teaching your own yoga in French or in English?
No, I did French too. I was doing 2 weekly regular classes at 2 different studios. One was like an expat studio, so the crowd was pretty international, so I was doing English. Uh-huh. And then the other one was like a chain of yoga studios in Paris that was like all French. So I did that one in all French.
Wow.
Well, luckily it's yin yoga, you know what I mean? I don't have to say anything.
Well, you're stepping into your fire there though, because that's new territory. And that's what I love about you, that you keep challenging yourself. That's a way to grow for sure.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know what it's like to learn a second language. Like, it's like, how do you say the inside of your foot? Or, yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? Like, it was just all those little, the vocabulary was like all those little body parts. Like, what do you call, like, I didn't know the names of the fingers in French. I mean, I guess I barely know them in English, but like,
well, you learned a ton then, huh?
It was yeah, no, it was challenging, but it was good. Yeah.
Cool. Can we
Yeah.
dive a little bit into why Paris and that whole part of your life that's we haven't talked about yet, but personally I
Yeah.
feel like it's such a big part of who you are. And to me, Yoti and myself, we talk about you a lot. and
Hopefully
and
good
to
things.
absolutely, to
Okay.
us what you're doing is really karma yoga. To us it's really service. And I personally, when I was living in India and we would go out with the ashram that I was working for a lot, we'd go out in these rural villages and start soccer games in these poverty-stricken villages to create joy. Basically, the sole reason was to go there to give people a break from their daily misery and suffering, and basically start, we would go, a handful of swamis and myself and start a soccer game. And that's like something that they do on a regular basis. That's just one of their rural outreach projects. And that was such an eye-opening thing for me to see what that did to people. And even though we talk about in yoga that happiness doesn't come from the outside, sometimes you need that outside, what do you call it, conductor or something to ignite that inner fire in yourself so that you can even feel joy again, so you know it's even in you. And that's something I saw was totally life-changing for a lot of these people. And it's such a simple thing. And you go to these communities with refugees and set up skate camps, and I want you to flesh this out and talk about it, but what you're doing is bringing joy, and you're doing it of service, and with the Boddhisattva heart in you, you're giving. And I want you to talk about that. So please do, and tell me where in the world you've been and what organizations you're working with and why and how and all of it.
Well, I'm definitely no bodhisattva, I'll say that.
Hey, that's up to us to determine.
Yeah, no, this past fall, I found myself, I was pinching myself because I was skateboarding in a Syrian refugee camp in Iraq. And I just was tripping out on that. That's where kind of like, how the hell did I end up there? So
Yeah.
that's a good question.
Yeah, you started skating when you were young and you just took that passion to this, and like, give us the journey a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, skating is like one of the things that has been like, it's been the thing that I've done the longest continuously in my life. So like, I started when I was 12 and I just never stopped. So I haven't done anything since I was 12 that I haven't ever stopped.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just been the common denominator for me wherever I am.
Mm-hmm.
And traveling, it's been, obviously I just have my skateboard with me.
Mm-hmm.
And I touched on it earlier, but when Evie and I did our big sort of reassessment of the direction of our lives, we did that big around the world trip, and I brought my skateboard with me, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And I can remember a very specific like event that made me sort of realize that my skateboard was more of a tool for connection than I had thought. I just thought that it was a skateboard before and it was fun, and that's why I did it. But it was in India, and Evie and I were in Jaipur, and it was like a really, really hot day. It was like 125 degrees or something crazy. And we had visited like the Pink City, and we just were so hot, and we found a little park and we saw some shade, and we just sat in the shade, and there was like a little sidewalk in the park, and I started skateboarding up and down it, and it was like crazy, crazy hot, but I was just bored, so I started doing tricks, and little kids started to show up, and I'd like let them ride the board and show them what it was. Obviously, none of them had ever really seen or maybe had the chance to ride a skateboard or whatever before. And then like their mom would come over, and then their whole family was there, and then like these like soldiers came over and like tuk-tuk drivers stopped, and like it turned into this whole thing, and there's probably like 30 to 40 people like just taking turns riding my skateboard, and I was like holding their hands, and like even the soldiers rode it, and
Cool.
um it was totally this moment where it felt uh like Evie and I were able to have like a real intimate connection with people, in a way that I don't know if we would have been able to do that like just as a tourist. Um, and then as we continued to sort of travel, even after that moment, um, there's just something about like a skateboard where I don't know, like kids look at it, people look at it, people look at you, like it's definitely like it kind of draws people for whatever reason. Um, and then when you do as a skateboarder, like, and you see someone else that's a skateboarder,
Mm-hmm.
that's a stranger, like you feel like there's like a connection there. So like oftentimes, like I joke about it, like skateboarder shoes are messed up. Like if you look at a skateboarder shoes, like a lot, they're like dirty and shitty and have holes in them. And um, so like if I'm out and about and like the person doesn't even have to be holding their board or whatever, but if I look down and I see like that little hole in their shoe, like I know, you know what I mean? And then like they'll see the hole in my shoe. It can be like a wordless exchange, like just like a nod or whatever, but it's like I instantly know that that stranger that I haven't said a word to, like I know that I have probably more in common with that person than like anyone else around. Just
Interesting.
just because the skateboarding is like a common denominator.
Uh-huh.
And like the reason for that is because I think like skating is, I think it draws like a certain type of person to it.
Okay.
And if you get into skating and you're a kid, like you're kind of like I mean, it's less like this now, but um, it's not a sport. It's like the association with skateboarding is like the kind of like outcasts or misfits, or the kids that don't fit in on the football team, or you know what I mean? That's like the stereotype.
Do you
And I
feel like
think,
that's still real today, though?
yeah, I think so. I think it's a space. Well, I think it depends, because it's obviously skateboarding is like an Olympic sport
Mm-hmm.
and there's people making $1 million at it. But if you just go down to your skate park and you talk to like a random kid in a random town at a random skate park, like again, like I would bet that they would kind of fit into a mold in some sense of like an outcast or a reject,
Mm.
or maybe not even that, maybe even if maybe that's like a really negative way to look at it, maybe it's like someone that's like creative um or different or in some way like um but anyway, if you all that is to say, like if you start skating
Mm-hmm.
and you continue on, it's so hard, it's such a hard sport. Like people say, like if you give someone a basketball and 100 tries, like they're going to shoot a basket.
Mm-hmm.
But if you give someone a skateboard and 100 tries, they're not going to ollie, they're not going to
Yeah.
jump. Like it's so hard. And so like it's a really, like the entry point is if you make it through and you continue to skate
Mm.
like through your life, like that takes like a certain type of person, I think.
Okay.
And then like through that experience, like there's some similarities that all skateboarders share, I think, that some like character traits that would come out of it, like following something so stupid as like riding a skateboard. But I say that because like it is I see it now as like a way of connection. So like it's a community, and I think for skateboarders, they're so passionate about what they do. It's not just something, it's not a sport you do in high school and then you're done.
Yeah.
It's like who you are. It's like the clothes you wear, the music you listen to, the magazines you read, the books you read, the people you hang out with. Like it's a lifestyle, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I think like um, you can find common ground more often than not with a skateboarder.
Mm-hmm.
And the difference is, I think, like even language, nationality, religion, gender, like age, like those things that are like traditionally barriers are less important because skateboarders identify, they have a stronger identity as like a skateboarder. Like I
Mm-hmm.
feel like I'm more of a skateboarder than I am an American. So like I have an American passport, of course, but like I'm going to connect to a skateboarder from Afghanistan probably better than I will just like with your average American.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? You know what I'm trying to
Mm-hmm.
say?
Yeah,
Like,
totally. I totally get that. And it also has been a connector for you. In the last few years, you've been traveling quite a bit. And um, will you segue a little bit into that and tell us what these, like, how did you come in contact with the organizations you're now working for and with? And where have you traveled? And what does that give you in terms of your inner world when you go and do these crazy things that are really cool?
yeah, so I'm definitely sorry. I went on a little bit of a tangent there.
No, I love it.
um, but so back to that story in India, skating with the people. That's when I sort of like began to um, see what skateboarding offered in terms of like you say, just like spreading joy.
Mm-hmm.
And I was curious. I was going to go back to grad school for international studies, and I was like deferred for a year. Um,
Did you say
it,
med school?
grad school.
Grad school.
Grad school. So I got accepted to the international school at the University of Denver for like a master's in international studies.
Cool.
But they didn't give me any money, so we deferred. I deferred for a year, but I
Mm-hmm.
was interested in that. My mindset was in that international development area, like
Mm-hmm.
nonprofits working in foreign countries. Like, so my head was sort of in that space to begin with, and I was like, oh, I wonder if anyone's doing anything with skating. And just gave it a Google, and I came up with Skateistan, which is a skateboard NGO. They're like the first one. They're like the big one. Um, and they started with two skate schools in Afghanistan and a skate school in Cambodia and now one in South Africa.
Wow.
And they use skating as like a tool for, it's like an entry point for learning art, for learning English. And it's a real, if any of your listeners want to give Skateistan a Google, it's definitely worth it.
Yeah.
There's they just won an Oscar for a short film that was made about their skate school and female skating in Afghanistan. Anyway, that's another thing. But
We'll link to all of this also in the show notes so people can see this because it's really rad, actually.
yeah, and so we happened to be in Cambodia at the time, and they do have a school there. So I just reached out. Turns out they're one of their HR people who was in Cambodia at the time is from Denver.
What?
And yeah, and we like connected. They don't normally let random people come and do like a site visit, but we connected, and he let me come do a site visit at Skateistan, Cambodia, and it was just very, very, very cool what they were doing with skating and youth development. And did more research after that. I was really stoked, and found another organization called Make Life Skate Life. And Make Life Skate Life is an organization that does concrete skate park building projects in areas of the world where like they don't have the resources to do that. So originally it came out of India. Then there's Bolivia, there's Myanmar, Ethiopia, Nepal, Brazil, Iraq.
Wow.
Trying to think where else.
That's quite a lot.
Yeah, and so I told them that I would be down to volunteer if they needed anyone, and they said yes. They needed someone to go to Ethiopia and help. Like they're having some problems with the park that had been built about a year before that. Some structural problems. They needed some help doing that. So I we were, loosey goosey traveling. So I just booked a ticket to Ethiopia and spent about a month there, and we're just like digging a ditch. And while we were there, though, like I started to do some kind of unofficial skate classes for
Mm.
local kids. There's like a really large street population of homeless youth that live on the street in Ethiopia, and a lot of them stay at the skate park because it's like kind of a safe place. So I'd be like showing up to sweep the skate park and dig, and there'd be like street kids sleeping all over the place on the park, and so
Mm.
it inevitably just turned into like, give them a board and help them out. And that eventually, by the time I left, like we turned that into like a actual structured official um, like bi-weekly lesson program
Wow.
that that the kids could join. And the the founder of Make Life Skate Life was real stoked on that. And so basically kind of opened up a like a position, if you want to call it that. Like I'm still a volunteer or whatever, but um, to do that at other project locations.
Mm.
Um, and so that, I mean, my official title is like director of programming. So like my job is to come to a skate park after the park has been built, and then do set up like official skate lessons,
Mm.
but then also be in charge of sort of like inviting other groups and types of people to join that wouldn't have done that before.
Mm.
So like after Ethiopia, the next project I was on was in Amman, Jordan. And in Amman, Jordan, the program was already existing, but it's like um, Jordan has like a really large amount of like of the refugee population is really large there,
Mm-hmm.
just because of its geographical location. People are fleeing everywhere into Jordan, and the king there accepts them, and there's a lot of NGOs and stuff. So there's like really big camps nearby, um, and the skate program there buses kids in twice a week to do skate lessons at the skate park in the city. And so they're refugee only. And then I think the refugee classes are divided. So there's um, like the country of origin, I think is divided. So like, there's like the Syrian class, there's like the um, Palestinian class. There's just because of the language issue, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and but the other cool thing that they do there is like a strong like emphasis on female participation.
Cool.
So that's like a direction that we continue to go with other projects. And so the latest, coolest one that we've been working on is we built a skate park in northern Iraq, in Iraqi Kurdistan, um, already 2.5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And the skate scene there is very cool, and the Iraqi skaters are very, very motivated and very stoked. And we're able to create a program with like four of the most like committed local skateboarders, to teach skateboarding for refugees there in northern Iraq. But this time the refugees didn't come to the skate park. Like we got the coaches to go to the refugee camp.
Ah.
And so that's why I went out to Iraq. That's why I found myself pinching myself
Mm.
skating on the concrete soccer pitch in the refugee camp in northern Iraq. So I went out last summer to kind of help kick off the program and bring over like a large donation of gear, and kind of just see how it was going. But that's been really cool. It's been really successful. And like, we've partnered with another NGO that works in the camp. And we're going to continue to expand it. But it basically, we're using skating as like you say, like to boil it down and distill it. It's like just bringing joy, is the purpose. And the research and the emphasis of that for like a refugee population is really cool. And it's really the impact is really real. And like a lot of large organizations like the UNHCR, they're the High Council for Refugees for the UN. They're supporting like sport development is what you would call it, initiatives, just because of the mental health, the physical exercise, like if a kid is happy and they have an outlet and an activity and a passion and something to do when they have free time, like they're a lot less likely to like A, turn to crime, B, be physically unhealthy, or C, like mentally unhealthy. And just the studies that are done around like a happy kid that's participating in like a sport, they're just showing just how big that is. So there's a lot of funding and support behind that, which is cool. So it's not just like teaching to a kid to skateboard for the sake of teaching a kid to skateboard. Like it's like it's sort of using it in a with a real intention. And I mean the intention is just to have fun, but like like so anyway, yeah, and that's been the whole trajectory for me on that path has gone in that direction.
And it's so cool to hear when you come back from these trips, and just obviously the life of a refugee is so hard for us to fathom. And I'm sure you have more than a handful of stories of individuals that you met and spent time with and connected with, maybe not even via language, like you're saying, but you had these moments that you're like, okay, this is why I'm doing this. And there's probably too many to count. And also what the fact that you're bringing that joy as an organization, you're providing that platform for that to flourish, but you're also, even though it's not a team sport, you're also teaching kids camaraderie and, cheering each other on when someone does a cool trick, or like there's that whole group connection, that whole like making peace in a very war threatened zone. I just think that there's so many elements in this that's just so beautiful, and it's so cool to see that there's now money put behind it. And sure, we need the research to show for more money coming in that it's helping mental health. Well, we all know it, by just looking at these kids and how excited they are. And also the girls, like you were talking about in Afghanistan, that they're now having a less suppressed place to be and just express themselves and just be who they are, because it's such a, otherwise, it's hard to be a woman in those countries. I can only imagine.
Yeah, and it's really interesting though, because the culture there sees skateboarding as a toy, not a sport.
Interesting.
So it doesn't have the barrier, because after a kid is however old, a young teenager, they can't, a female cannot, a girl can't participate in or play sports. But it's since they don't see skateboarding as a sport, it's like this loophole. And so if like the largest per capita female skate scene, skate population of girls in the world is in Afghanistan.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's super cool. And it's like there's so many places too, like everywhere in the world, like there's kids, and there's projects, and there's something happening like with skating. So
cool.
It does, because it's like it's sort of like an undefinable thing, it can sort of pass underneath a lot of barriers that other more traditional like sports can't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you see yourself doing this for a while, traveling, doing this, or do you see yourself putting effort into the Ridgeway skate park, or where are you at with skating in your life?
I tried with the Ridgeway skate park.
It was a no-go?
Oh, it was a no-go. It was a
Okay, well, that's
no-go.
a different topic.
That's another podcast.
Yeah, town politics, it sounds like.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. Our latest project was we built a skate park in one of the favelas, like one of the ghettos in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
And actually just yesterday we had a week-long skate workshop. We partnered with Skateistan, that organization that I told you I'd found out about before.
Mm-hmm.
At the very beginning. We had a workshop planned there for July, but we just canceled that for obvious reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
COVID times, for those who
yeah,
are listening.
COVID times.
Afterwards, yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of uncertain as to like what things will look like.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm definitely going to continue to do it, and
Mm-hmm.
it's definitely like it feels like it's like the most rewarding, interesting thing I do. And if I could continue to do that for the rest of my life, like I would be happy.
Well, see, that's what I love about you, because you're really bringing, with this whole mindset, you're bringing your yoga practice off the mat. And for me, it's obvious. And I know that you somewhere in you feel that this has a greater purpose that's bigger than yourself, and you're the vehicle to offer the service through you. And I just find it really inspirational. And that's kind of why I wanted to highlight it here, because when you have a passion that can serve others, you have this gift and you're good at it, and obviously you're just showing up. And when you can do that and it serves others, it just, if everyone could do what they're good at, that's a utopia, obviously. But I just want to highlight you as a case for living that yoga and living that service, because that's really what you're doing in my eyes. And it's so important, and it's so incredibly impactful.
And I think like it's one thing it's not like it's specific to skateboarding.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? Like everyone,
Absolutely.
like you and Yoti with soccer or whatever, like
Mm-hmm.
you can do something. It doesn't take much, and I think like it doesn't have to be like a grand gesture and you have to go off to like some crazy country and do some crazy volunteer thing, or do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, you don't have to do the crazy stuff that Shane does, especially not the ski touring.
well, I just think it's easy to have an impact on someone's life in a positive way. Just you're like right where you are, wherever you are,
Mm-hmm.
like today, you know what I mean? Like you can just say hi to someone, smile at someone, give someone a compliment. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think it has to be such a big thing. But it does go a long way. And I think like, if anyone listening, like wanted to do something similar, like I think you just have to like look at your look at what your strengths are, and
Mm-hmm.
and just go do something with that strength.
Yeah.
Like just go do something. Like, you know what I mean? There's no, I don't know, book a plane ticket. Like,
Well, I feel like a lot of people during this COVID time have also expressed that they're sitting a lot with, their purpose and how they're spending their time. And, it's just priorities, really. And if
yeah,
you have the skillful means, we're talking dharma, we're talking artha, we're all of these things that can really come to life if you just give it enough room and you prioritize it and you let your life be focused around that. And it seems like you found that path, and it seems like you now have the financial backing, the organization itself, to keep going. And it's so cool to see that these seeds are being planted. And like you're saying, we don't have to look further. We have enough stuff that we can contribute to right here in our own town, right, or in our own country. It doesn't have to be across the world, but you're doing it. And I want to highlight that because it is remarkable.
Well, I think too, like, I just want to say, like, I don't think I would have looked at skating with that perspective if it hadn't been for yoga. I mean, I looked at everything from a new perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I would think like, thanks to my yoga practice,
mm-hmm.
I'm able to like sort of see what I'm doing and what I want to do, and be aware of what I would say like I'm aware of why I do something, whereas I'm not sure if I would have seen that or done that before or had like the self-awareness. It's not like I'm like a yoga master or anything, but I practice enough just to see a little bit, like just a few degrees off of like my normal perspective, my normal viewpoint. And I think that's been like a really huge thing for just looking at my life, like looking at where I want to put effort and what I want to do and what I don't want to do. And like, I'm not sure if I would have seen things that clearly if it weren't for my yoga practice, to be honest.
Well, and again, with your yoga offerings, you are holding space for others to drop in, just like you did throughout your yoga practice. So you're really tying all of this together. And it's a conscious, choice that you're spending your time sharing the yoga and sharing the skating. And I also want to kind of circle back to that in terms of you've done some yoga work for skaters, correct?
Yep. Yeah.
Tell me more about that.
Yeah, skaters are a hard group to teach yoga to. I'll say that. No, so I originally wrote an article for a skateboard magazine called Jenkem, and it was like an introduction to yoga for skateboarders. And it was like kind of mildly successful in the small little niche world of skateboarders that want to do yoga. And then sort of through that, I had the idea to do like a video series for another skateboard magazine called Skatism. And that one is a yoga specific or a yin yoga specific video series and articles of yin yoga for skateboarders.
Cool.
So like basically you could Google it. I guess we can put a link to that as well. There's I've got 4 videos out there. And there's a funny story about me getting robbed at knife point during one of those videos, we can maybe circle back to that. But the reason why I made them is because I was seeing these videos on the internet, and they're like, you know how you Google like yoga for, and then you can find like yoga for golfers, yoga for skaters, you can type in anything. There's yoga for whatever the hell you can like ever even imagine,
I guess I've never actually Googled it that way. I might have to spend some time doing that for the fun of it.
Well, people market it. It's like a marketing thing because it's just like it's a yoga sequence. Like then it's like what makes it specific for golfers or whatever, But I was seeing these like yoga for skaters things, and I was looking at it, and I was like, man, this is just like a vinyasa yoga class, and it says yoga for skaters. But like, what about this is specifically for skaters, But at that point, as like a yin yoga teacher, I had my own routine down, like, and I have like a recovery routine I would do after yoga. And I like as a skate, like none of the yoga for skateboard videos were a skateboarder teaching the yoga. It was always like a yoga teacher like presenting it for skateboarders.
Okay.
Like I have a unique perspective as being like a skateboarder and a yoga teacher. And so I was able to kind of call bullshit on some of the stuff and like create like a real like program for skateboarders that they could benefit from. So just targeting areas of the body that get a lot of wear and tear. And then with yin yoga, a lot of the emphasis is on regenerating tissue in the body, and especially in the joints. And there's like a lot of really interesting like research being done on static stretching, like long held static stretching, on how that can like make your collagen thicker. It increases like a particle it's called elastin. It makes your tissues, it's like what develops in pregnant women to make them more flexible. That increases.
the fibroblasts are stressed in your joints and in your connective tissue, which like it's creating more collagen. So your connective tissue is becoming thicker, stronger, more elastic. There's another component that attracts water into, it's called HA, and it's a particle that holds water in. Like you're creating that, you're stimulating that. So your body is becoming stronger, it's becoming more stretchy, and the ability to hold water, like you're literally becoming younger, because basically like aging and injury, it's like you're just drying out, you're shrinking and drying.
Yeah.
And yin yoga, specifically holding a pose in a static stretch way, it's like it's stimulating this body's natural healing process in the joints. And like as a skater, that's an area that gets a lot of use and abuse. So like when I would see the videos before, it's like I don't think doing a bunch of sun salutations is going to be a good thing for a skateboarder. I mean, they already have a lot of that like physical activity. They've got that workout, they've got that stress on their muscles, like they already have that down.
Yeah.
Like they need recovery and healing. And so my idea was like creating a yin yoga series for skaters, just to try and help in that way. And it's been, like I said, like, I don't know, I guess kind of successful. Like I've done 4, and I did a meditation one as well most recently.
It's rad. I mean, you're probably same thing there. You're allowing people to dip their toes in unfamiliar territory, but when cool Shane is doing it, why couldn't I do it? You know, all of these kids are looking up to you, so why not, you know, provide this is obviously, you know, to a urban skate scene as well, because it's online and it's in magazines and all of that. But I'm sure that you stepping out among these kids that you're working with also brings this peace and calm, because you're bringing it just by your being. And then now you have these videos that people can watch wherever they are, and just like you're saying, drop in, and they're probably having, like you, this really young lifestyle, and the yin yoga is obviously complementary to that.
Yeah, and like, I mean, the thing is, like, I still skateboard, and I'm not a bad skateboarder, and I'm not very young anymore either. So it's like, I'm 36, and there's, I don't know, I can still skate, and like, I think people are like, oh, like, what do you do? Like, how do you? And I just tell them, you know, like, oh, this is what I do. Like, my body feels pretty good still. You know, I haven't had a lot of injuries. And the other cool thing is, like, I do get people reaching out to me, just like on social media, who are like, hey, I just wanted to write you and just tell you that your video has been really helping me. And, you know, whether it's just like a random person, that's super cool. I get a little bit of that. I've had a couple pros write as well. Like, I had a pro who was recovering from an injury write me and tell me that, like, that I helped him out, that the video helped him out. So it's
sweet.
I don't know, but it's just like a few people, you know, but
I just love that you're bridging it. Yeah. And you're tapping into, this is what I know. This is how my body feels. This is what helped me. Let's put it out there in terms, just offering it for others. And you're doing it with, at least what I see, very little ego, and just offering it, being out there. And it's just cool, because if more people would do stuff like this, that they are connected with, that they are inspired by, whatever their trait is, you know, then the world would be quite different.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's cool because if you just go to your normal yoga studio, it's like 40 to 50 something, like, white women, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And I mean, there's a lot of reasons for that, and that's not a bad thing either, but it's cool to, like, think about taking yoga to other groups of people. And to me, I find that really interesting. Like who wouldn't just go to a yoga class? Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
just going into a drop-in yoga class for the first time, if you're not a skinny white female gymnast, like, it's super intimidating.
Of course. Yeah.
And so, like, if I could make yoga more accessible and get more people doing yoga, like to me, that would be a huge success.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Wow. Thank you for, now we touched on subjects that you didn't even want to go talk about, but I forced you into a corner anyways. I love it. I feel like I covered all the topics I really wanted to talk to you about. I don't know if you have anything else that you want to share with us that's, on your mind or correlated to any of these things, or something completely different. While I have you, I want to squeeze the last out of you.
No, I'd probably just want to say like thanks to everyone. Thanks to you, Hansa. Like I see you as like one of my teachers, and anyone that I've ever kind of practiced yoga with, or had anyone that's had like an influence on me in any way, whether it's like an official teacher or just someone pushing me, or Evie getting me to go to my first yoga class, like whatever it is, like just like a huge thanks, because I'm super grateful for like just this whole adventure with yoga, and super grateful for anyone that's like added a little bit to like my little tool bag, which I feel like is my yoga practice for reaching into when I need a little help, so yeah, thanks to everyone.
Cool.
Yeah.
And for people that are in that boat where they're intimidated to go to yoga, but they now feel that they resonate with you, how do we learn more about your classes and where to find information about you? All your calls to action, please.
I've got a website with a really lame name. Don't judge me. It's yogishane.com. I got a lot of flack because people are like, to say that you're a yogi is so presumptuous. And I was like, it's just a name. But
yeah, totally.
I just didn't want it to be Shane Carrick Yoga. But, so,
you are yogi. That's what we're talking about here. You're bringing it outside your mat. So just don't let that get to you.
Okay. Well, someone can argue with me later about the name of my website, but it's yogishane.com, or you could find me on Instagram, Shane Carrick, Facebook as well. But yeah, probably the best way is just to check out the website.
Cool.
Yeah.
And then we'll have the links to some skate yoga stuff. We'll have to the skate organizations. We'll have your website and Insta and all of that too. And thank you so much for being willing.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Hansa. It's nice to have a chat officially,
Yeah, totally. And yeah, I just really appreciate you, Shaner. And you always have such a big caring heart, and to, from afar see what you do and get to witness that is really precious. And you're very dear to Yoti and me. So carry on with your good work in the world and know that you're loved.
Yeah, likewise. Right back at you, Hansa.
Thank you for tuning in with us today, and we hope that you stay in the loop by following us on Instagram, subscribing on SoundCloud. We'll eventually upload these episodes also to iTunes and all the other platforms where you find your favorite podcasts. For now, follow along where you can, and also know that we have a lot of really interesting conversations in the pipeline, so you do want to stay in the loop. Sign up for the newsletter. The whole initiative is donation-based. If you want to see it evolve, feel free to donate if you have the means through the links listed here below, and also from the VICHARA Inspiration website. If you don't have the means, absolutely no worries. This is still for you. We hope that you listen and absorb whatever you can absorb and integrate what you can integrate. We hope to together make this world a more beautiful place. So thank you for listening, and until next time, Om Tat Sat.